about the Children's Brain Tumor Network, and thank you all for taking the time out of your day. We're really looking forward to sharing a little bit more about our efforts and some of the things that we are representing, not only in the scientific community, but especially within our patient and family community. And that's really who we work for each and every day. So we're excited to share a little bit of some updates and some information. And please feel free throughout the presentation, if you have questions, you can use the chat function and go ahead and add your comments and questions, and we'll be monitoring that throughout the call. Also, you're welcome to unmute yourselves and ask a question, interrupt us throughout. We really want this to be a informative and informational session for you. So if something isn't clear or isn't spelled out, we're happy to take a minute or two to explain that for you. Okay, go ahead and okay, so as we talked about, this meeting will be recorded and posted for you to see anytime. If you would not like to be recorded and have your audio or anything, please let us know. You can go ahead and mute your video so that won't be visible. But we would like to share this with as many people as possible. So we'll go ahead and let us know if there's an issue with that. But it'll be available on our YouTube channel, and we'll post the slides and information later on for you to do. But yeah, again, please participate and let us know if you have any comments. So we really wanted to talk about the impact of brain tumors and go ahead and look at that. I'm sorry, Alex, I'm having an issue with my screen. I actually can't see it all. So
okay, do you want me to take over, Bobby? Or?
Yes, until I can get that figured out, I'll let you know. Thank you, Jenna. Sorry for that.
Sure, no problem. Hi, everyone. Bobby is, I think, even on vacation, so thanks so much for joining us. Bobby is our amazing CBTN graphic designer, and he's the lead artist for all the work that we do. So thanks, Bobby. So, you know, I think on the agenda slide, we went a little bit quick on that, but we're hoping to do the CBTN, what, where, when, why, and how. And this is really our why. You know, as you all probably know, brain and central nervous system tumors are the most common cause of cancer-related death in children, 0 to 19 within the United States. And this is just a horrific statistic. Next slide. Within the United States, you know, 4,000 children and young adults are diagnosed with a brain tumor every year alone. And, you know, the median age of death for these children is only 9 years of age. Average survival rate is only 5 years, with most children succumbing after that. There's about 14,000 children and young adults living with brain tumors every year in the United States. It's, you know, sometimes you hear that it's rare, considered a rare diagnosis, but truly for us, it is not. Next slide. And
so I can, Jenna, I got back on it.
Okay, great.
Oh, sorry. Because we'll hear from Jenna later on in our opportunity to hear. And as she talked about, it's a really horrific statistic, not just in the U.S. but globally. Brain tumors really don't discriminate the patients that they affect and the families that they find. We'll find brain tumors across all socioeconomic levels, all religions, all races. It really does affect anyone and potentially anyone. So as you can see here, we think this is a really powerful reminder to us of the need to work hard every single day to eradicate these diseases in children. And as you can see, brain tumors are the leading disease killer in children and young adults for these countries. I don't even think this is a complete list, unfortunately. So you think about all of the children in these nations that are suffering from brain tumors. And that's why we're committed to partnering with so many institutions and organizations around the world to really improve and speed up the development of therapies. The next slide. Go ahead, Alex. So just a couple of other statistics here. We see that, again, these are really effective diseases, and they're really complex diseases to solve, which is in large part why we haven't done better as a community to date. But globally, you can see 67,000 children and young adults each year, which we believe is 67,000 too many. And every year, a cumulative total of about 412,000 children will be, dealing with the effects of a brain tumor. So really, really terrible, really awful statistics there. But next slide. So, and just wanted, before we pass it off to the rest of our team, just wanted to talk about kind of the overarching vision that we are a part of and really striving to go. You may have heard of us as the Children's Brain Tumor Tissue Consortium. We are undergoing a rebranding of that to better represent who we are as not just a consortium or a group, but as a network. And that so many different players are coming together under one umbrella to make research possible. So we're really trying to make sure that we encompass all of those different areas, from research to science to foundations, all working together, dedicated to creating a world where no child dies from a brain tumor. And I think we have a question from Kristen.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Bobby. I want to ask really quick while we were just on these slides. I saw that you said that brain tumors are the #1 disease killer in those countries that you put up the flags, but you only say it's the #1 form of cancer killer in the US. And I'm wondering why that is, because I know for a fact cancer is the #1 disease killer of children, and brain tumors are the #1 cause of death from brain tumors, so therefore it's the #1 disease killer in the US, I thought.
That's true.
So I think that it's even a more powerful statement when it says it's the #1 disease killer rather than cancer killer.
That's good feedback to have. We can definitely do that. We've heard folks come from different angles, and so we can definitely update that to say that. I think that's a really good point,
if
Kristen.
other people agree. I just wanted to ask.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We agree.
Yep, thank you, Kirsten.
Okay, do you want to turn it over to, I think, Jen?
Yes. All right, next slide. And hello, everyone. I'm Jennifer Mason, Director of Operations for the CBTN, and I'm going to review the key timelines from the beginning until now and who and what makes up the consortium. You can go to the next slide. And the idea of the consortium was born around 2009, and in 2011, CHOP was already depositing the first samples into the biobank. We knew that CHOP was not going to do this alone because there is just not enough samples donated within one institution to do meaningful research with pediatric brain tumors, especially with over 125 different tumor types. So in 2013, 3 additional members joined to become an official consortium and began enrolling and depositing samples into the biorepository, and that was Pittsburgh, Chicago, and Seattle. And in 2014, we launched the first platform to allow the biorepository inventory and all of its clinical data to be queried, which essentially means running a report to see what's in there so researchers can begin to request those samples. Also, I mentioned clinical data because most biorepositories only collect the samples. We actually collect them in addition with detailed data such as demographics, family history, diagnosis, treatment information, as well as longitudinal information. So we're going back into the EMR when all of our patients are coming back into clinic to see how they're doing. So this makes it truly a unique biorepository compared to others in that we have highly annotated clinical data alongside of the samples. Now, our mission and vision really wasn't complete at this point. It wasn't just about collecting the samples and the clinical data. You know, we needed to take it another step, or actually several steps forward, and create platforms and tools and additional resources for our researchers to openly access the samples and the data free of charge. And of course, this is outside of the consortium members. You don't have to be a member to access these samples. It's anyone in the world who has a great research idea. And over the next several years, we launched Gavatica, a pediatric genomic cloud. This was in 2016. And Adam Resnick has always likened it to Netflix, where it allows the researcher to access enormous amounts of data, terabytes, even beyond that, of genomic data that's been generated from our samples without having to receive it on a hard drive, through the mail. They can just instantly get access to that data. They can download it. They can work with it within that genomic cloud. So essentially, it's really a game changer for our researchers and the genomic data to empower their research. And then CBTN was able to generate this sequencing data through an in-kind donation of over 1,000 subjects. And it essentially created the pediatric pediatric brain tumor atlas in 2017. And again, all of that is housed on Gavatica, allowing our researchers to access that free of charge, open access, which is our vision to empower their research. Let's see, next step. In 2018, the Kids First data platform was launched, supported by a very large NIH grant called the Gabriella Miller Kids First grant. And it not only allows for researchers to query and view the different data types from our consortium, but it brings together rare diseases and creates essentially an ecosystem of data and information. We all know that there's so much connection with these diseases in the underlying aspects, the molecular aspects of the disease. We know that children that are born with a craniofacial malformation are more likely to have a brain tumor in life. So this ecosystem supports that research and allows the data to be compared from one disease to another, ultimately supporting our goal for better therapies and cures. And then in one of our objectives, 2019, was to use our resources to support the development and management of clinical trials. And in 2019, the first subject was enrolled in a clinical trial using our research data to help inform that effort. And this was just the first of many trials. There's already several that are in planning with our sister consortium, the Pediatric Neuro-Oncology Consortium, or PNOC. And then this leads us right into 2020 and our current year in which we are rebranding, but also continue our growth of collaboration and resources with researchers across the world. So if you want to go to the next slide. Now, you can see our growth. As I stated, back in 2013, it was just, with CHOP, it was 3 other institutions. Now we're up to 18 official institutions worldwide. And we also have 6 other institutions that are onboarding. They applied to be a member, and our executive board had approved their membership. So they are in the midst of going through their regulatory, which is their consent, and of course our master agreement. So that's all in progress. And then we've also had another institution that has applied that has yet to be reviewed by the executive board, but there's another one coming. Which is fantastic because this, really leads into one of our objectives for this upcoming year, and that's growth. And we're already we're already doing that with the increase in institutions and ultimately those downstream resources that researchers use. All right, next slide. And with that growth, obviously we need some tremendous leadership. So we have 2 co-chairs led by Dr. Angela Wanders and Dr. Brian Rue. They are co-chairs of the executive board. And we also have co-chairs, Dr. Adam Resnick and Dr. Michael Prados, who are co-chairs of the scientific committee. And then Jenna Lilly, who is going to speak to you in a minute. She is our executive director, leading our objectives and strategic vision and financial sustainability for the consortium. So we have so many sites, so many members. You know, we actually have 2 different boards or committees. We have the scientific committee and the executive committee. So the executive committee is, you know, really focused on the development of the consortium, bringing in the resources, the engagement of our members, as well as, you know, pulling in the specimens and the clinical data, et cetera. And then the scientific committee's responsibility is really to use those resources and making sure that we are we have strategic collaborations with our researchers and other partners in development of that. So with that, I think that I have one more slide. So if you want to go to the next slide. And of course, we have Bobby Mulder and Jonathan Waller, along with the operations team, bringing in the specimens to the Ops Center at CHOP. But they are, Bobby Mulder is our genius with our graphics, as you see on the slide deck. He's phenomenal with the graphics and the one-pagers. And then Jonathan Waller is our lead writer and phenomenal wordsmith and language guru on everything that we put outward. So that is the end of what I am going to pass it on to Jenna for the next slide.
Yeah, and I thanks, Jen. I think, you know, that was a great overview, and there was a lot of information in there. I don't see any questions in the chat, but does anyone have any question, you know, about the historical timeline of CBTN, you know, from 2013 to where we are now, or how the CBTN is managed by the scientific committee or the executive committee? Nope, no questions? Okay.
Actually, just one, sorry, this is Pete McQuaid here. One of your slides talked about in 2016 where you got mentioned is with the White House Cancer Moonshot. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so part of the Cancer Moonshot, Cavatica, was included in the press release and the work of the Cancer Moonshot from the White House initiative. And so because Cavatica and CBTN built a platform that was able to share data in real time and also provide computational analysis tools and the opportunity for researchers to work together in a very accelerated pace, Cavatica was noticed and included in the Cancer Moonshot.
Awesome. Janet, could we get a copy of that press release, or is it on your site somewhere? Maybe you can get it to Kristen and she can forward it to us on the board.
Sure, I'd be happy to do that.
I have it, you guys. I'll
awesome.
get it to you.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah, it'd be just interesting to read it.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit today, and I just wanted to say hello. As Jen said, she kind of introduced me. My name is Jenna Lilly, and I have been honored to be part of CBTTC, now CBTN, since 2013. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that transformation and why we're moving from CBTTC to CBTN. As you saw in that last slide, we have made huge leaps in progress. So when we began this, one of the main issues in pediatric brain tumor research was the lack of resources. You know, and the goal for CBTTC at that time was, okay, let's come together, let's collate all the materials, all the data, and then let's share that as fast as possible with the research community. And, we did it. We got to some really great progress. Now, as Jen said, we have to continue to grow until every child is cured. Because of the intricacies of each child, the precision medicine approach is really needed. So we have to continue to enroll subjects, collect the biospecimens. But what we're really at now is the opportunity to translate that into clinical impact. So we have this amazing resource. We have started that collaborative science approach, and what we feel now is our transition into clinical impact is more of a network. We're no longer just a tissue repository. We're no longer, a data repository. What we are now is that real-time network of using those materials within scientific projects, within clinical trials, and helping clinicians on clinical trials make that really precision to that patient treatment decision. So to show that our expansion from tissue. Also, one of our questions that we get a lot is, this is a consortium. Can only consortium members ask for specimens or materials? And we thought perhaps by transitioning to that network instead of consortium, it would really open up the opportunity to say, hey, no, we're a network. We're here to partner. We're here to empower all pediatric brain tumor researchers. Any question about the transition there? So as you can see to the right, Bobby has designed a new logo for us, and this is our new name, the Children's Brain Tumor Network, and our new tagline is until every child is cured. And that will be rolled out this September. Next slide. As I was just saying, it's really important to understand, of course, what is the CBTN about? And, what we would like to say is that we're the #1 accelerator of research, #1 accelerator of precision clinical trials, and #1 accelerator of clinical impact. And if you take a look at that slide, some of the, what's really interesting and we hope that you take away is that we're not saying we will make all the discoveries. We're not saying, we want to do this because we want to discover X, all of what needs to happen for the cures. What we're trying to say here is that we are going to empower all of us to facilitate new discoveries and cures as fast as possible. And we have really built that infrastructure to be able to do that. As we said, you'll see on the slides, we've supported over 170 researchers with raw materials and thousands with processed data. As Jen mentioned, we're really starting to work with PNOC now, helping to, one, use the CBTN resources to develop trials based on pediatric data and specimens, which truly has not been done before. The data was not available, so those trials were based on adult data. So we're extremely excited to start working with PNOC, and we will be working with any clinical trial group that is developing novel therapeutic trials. And then, of course, that accelerator of clinical impact. And again, we're not saying we're going to do all the work. What we're saying is we're going to empower everyone to get this done together faster. Next slide. And how do we do that? So, we have our vision and mission that Jen spoke about, but we do a lot of strategic planning, annual goals, looking at our objectives and key results. What's our performance? How do we get more efficient and effective? So we can empower all researchers to be able to do pediatric brain tumor research. And so this year, you're looking at our goals for this year, and our year actually is an academic year, so we run July 1 to June 30th. So the goals that we have here are presented to the CBTN Scientific Committee, Executive Board, and the memberships, and they all provide us feedback, and then we go and we can approve them and we move forward together. So as Jen said, like the first one is to grow the number of institutions. Again, because of those pediatric brain tumor resources being scarce. And it also is an opportunity when we bring on new members to have another level of expertise. Because of the diversity of brain tumors, by bringing everyone together, we have people that are interested in different areas. Someone's interested in medulloblastoma, someone interested in low-grade glioma. So by hooking everyone together, we can make sure that all of the histologies are represented. Of course, we want to increase the number of research projects. And so, we're hoping, again, to really drive the outreach this year to let folks know that CBTN has this powerful resource that can be used for fellows that are coming into a hospital and have to do research projects, for neuro-oncologists that would like to do a research project, for the young college person that really wants to do a big data analytics project. We want to be able to empower any project and to increase the amount of research that is being done on pediatric brain tumors. I spoke a little bit about increasing precision medicine trials, and we've been working with PNOC and their DMG trial over the past year and have made great strides in being able to provide an analysis of a patient that comes onto the trial against pediatric genomic data that we have. And by doing that, we can see where that person clusters within our data set that has longitudinal outcome data. And this can provide them, okay, this patient has a specific variation and they look like this patient. We should potentially try this drug. Or this patient does not have that variant. Let's not use that drug. Let's look at something that would work for them. So it's been a very exciting initiative to be working with and utilizing the CBTN resources. And we really, as I said, want to drive our patient and foundation connections. That's why this is one of our new exercises to do, the CBTN 101. We are working with NIH, and this year we're submitting our first large grant to get support for CBTN. It's called a SPORE grant. We are starting to develop our plans to talk with commercial partnerships and pharmaceuticals. How best can we partner? As many of you know, the RACE Act was just launched this month, and we are extremely excited to partner with pharmaceuticals for their success and drive for the RACE Act. So we really hope through the pharmaceutical connections with the RACE Act, we will be able to get pediatric brain tumors on the forefront of those areas. And of course, we always want to drive higher education to get more people interested in pediatric brain tumor research. Any questions on some of these higher level goals?
What is the RACE Act, Jen?
Yeah, so the RACE Act is a legislation that was passed, and it just went into act, where now pharmaceutical companies that are going for an adult indication have to do a pediatric trial as well. So prior to this, they were able to write waivers where they could say, oh, well, it's a rare disease and there's only 100 kids a year that get this, so I just need a waiver and I'm going to focus on the adult indication. They can't do it anymore. So now they're actually going to have to work in pediatrics, and we're super excited that this brings pharmaceuticals almost it's a requirement that they have to do. And we feel like we could be part of the answer, because here we are with a large amount of genomic data, large patient population. We can help them get through those requirements, but also, achieve our mission. So we're super excited about that.
Awesome. Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions about the goals? I know that's a lot.
I had one other question. Just when you talked about it being open science collaboration to CBTN, is this kind of a new idea of having this Netflix type access to all this data? I'm sure it's not just constrained to just pediatric brain tumors, but is it for lung cancer and, blood disorders and everything?
Yeah, so typically, the model has been in academic research that, you come to a university and you get your title as assistant, professor, and what you need to do is, grow your research, keep that information to yourself, and publish it. Publication equals career advancement in the academics. But what that really created was almost like it didn't incentivize people to share. So to be able to publish, they would keep their data siloed, so they could go through that data and mine it, find every nuance, and then be able to publish on it. What CBTN is trying to do is say, you know what, that's not really the best science. What the best science competition could be, if everyone had the same data, if everybody had the same raw data and started on the same playing field, actually the people that could publish it are the ones that have the best ideas. Anyone can bring something brand new and say, okay, here, this is brand new. But what we're saying is, let's get all that raw data out there, and then people can compete on the best science. One person may have some, question about the mechanisms of a specific gene. Another may be looking at the proteomics part of it. And why do we have to wait till one person is done with the data after 10 years to then try another idea? It's just not what we can do when we know children need new care today. It works when maybe you're a basic scientist and you're studying fruit flies, or you're looking at X, Y, and Z like on a butterfly. But when we know kids need treatment today, what CBTN is trying to do with our open science is provide everyone the same playing field in a very secure and managed area, but get that data out to everyone so we could have all new ideas almost at the same time, in parallel. Does that make sense?
And
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I wanted to add, when Jenna was saying the playing field, this supports young researchers too, those that are right out of med school or even in med school or younger, that don't have the ability to get the grants. They don't have enough publications, or they're just not getting them. So they don't need as much resource and financial support to collect the samples, get them generated. I mean, they can start off right off the bat with 1,000 subjects worth of the genomic information, or the clinical data or specimens are available for them to access. So it supports everyone across the board.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Sure. No, those were great questions. Any other questions for this part?
Raymer, I've got a question for you.
Sure.
Given this idea where you're trying to broaden out the research as far as possible, how do you avoid multiple people basically going down the same path and expending resources doing redundant work?
So that's a great question, and we thought about this, and because the specimens are very precious materials, we went through developing a workflow process. So for specimens, when somebody submits a request, what our operations center team does, Elizabeth Appert, who is on this call, is she reviews all the other projects. Is there another project that's working on this area? If there was another project, was data already generated? Now, when you move into the data phase, that data is non-consumptive, and so you could share that with multiple people, right? And you need to do that to make sure that the science is good, that you get confirmation. And that makes perfect sense. But for the specimens, we make sure that, just like you're saying, there isn't a collaborative project already going. If there is, could they join, or do they already generate that data? If there isn't, then, and I will walk through this later, we have a primary reviewer that has that expertise that researcher is talking about to review the proposal. That scientific reviewer will then either ask questions back to the person that's requesting the materials, or if they approve it, they will provide a summary and they send it to the entire CBTN scientific committee. And the scientific committee will do the same thing. They'll take what that reviewer that is an expert in that area, read that information, read the proposal, and they'll go back and say, do the same thing. Are there questions that need to go back to the researcher to ask, well, why are you doing this? And you know what? I think, I have my experience here, and I think you might want to think about adding this in or doing it that way. It also gives some great mentoring and some great collaboration opportunities. And then if that proposal then is approved, then the CBTN will send those materials to the investigator, with the caveat that any raw material or knowledge needs to be sent back to the consortium, because all the materials are provided for free.
And Jenna, we did get a question from one of our participants who's asking about imaging data and what the process for considering requests for that data as well. If you want to maybe highlight a little bit of that.
Sure. And let me just make sure I answered the first question. Is that first question make sense?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, imaging. This is in a very exciting field that CBTN is thrilled to participate in. So on our subjects, we do collect the MRIs that are part of the clinical care. And so we have a new imaging working group that is leading these efforts. And what we're able to do is to de-identify those imaging, and we are partnering with a new commercial entity called Flywheel. And Flywheel is an area where they can come in with those images and start doing research right there on the platform. So there's very interesting AI, there's radiogenomics that's starting to happen, but with the new leadership within CBTN and the imaging working group, we are starting new clinical trials within PNOC regarding imaging. We are placing into all the PNOC clinical trials an imaging component. And then, of course, we're launching, as I said, the AI and radiogenomics projects right on those images.
And a follow-up to that, Jenna, from a participant, Miriam, is, do we have to submit project proposals for Flywheel access?
So the access on Flywheel is the materials are de-identified, and so I would believe, you could submit your question to CBTN for the proposal, and then right now we're still working in a concierge type approach. So learning what you would like to do, we'd be able to pair you with our CBTN imaging scientific lead and to help you identify the resources, know what's available, and support you in your initial project. So reaching out to us would be the best way to start along those lines. Any other questions here? Okay, advanced slide. Along with what you just saw, those goals for research and really trying to push forward, we also want to make sure that we have operational excellence within the CBTN. We have to drive a sustainable funding strategy, and we have to make sure that the consortium is led through experts, is diverse, it's inclusive. We have dedicated management with clear goals. opportunities for involvement from the community, and effective communication. So we are launching this year transparency. We are going to be providing budget reports and our budget plans, our advocacy communication plans for the year, and our advocacy reports, and really trying to show everyone how we operate behind CBTN in hopes of improving and really communicating a little bit more efficiency with everyone. But, you know, I always am so grateful to Jen Mason and her role as Director of Operations and making sure that all of the member sites are following the standard SOPs, which is so critical for the CBTN, to make sure those specimens are collected in a way that we could use them for downstream research. They actually have to be collected within 30 minutes or they're not eligible for certain research programs. And so what we try to do is really collect those high standard biospecimens and clinical data to make sure that they're useful for the broadest range of research projects that could come our way. So Jen does an amazing job of making sure that we are able to fill those roles. Next slide. And again, you know, this kind of reiterates what I said, is that, you know, our discovery solution isn't for us to just provide all the materials to one investigator. Our discovery solution is to connect everyone and harness their expertise, their diversity, their different interests, and then empower them, right, for this collaborative data science. And I mean, I am thrilled that we've reached 170 researchers around the globe with these raw materials. If you think about that, the number of neuro-oncologists or the number of researchers that were actually in pediatric brain tumor research was small. And so if we now, the CBTN, is supporting almost in parallel 170 new researchers focused on pediatric brain tumors, I think that's a true win. Of course, we want it to be a million, you know, 10,000, a million, and we're going to set our sights on that. But I think we're really starting to serve the community and make sure pediatric brain tumors are on the front of everyone's mind. Next slide. And our methodology, just to talk through this, you know, real quickly, is we enroll our patients on our CBTN protocol, and we collect the clinical data and biospecimens related to their brain tumor journey. So it's that longitudinal aspect that is really unique to us, that we have that. We have researchers that can look at the evolution of a tumor from their original tumor, then they got, let's say they got radiation and chemotherapy, and if there was a progression where we're able to get an additional sample, we can see how the tumor reacted to that chemotherapy and radiation. What did it turn off? How did it come back? What new mechanisms did it turn on to be able to survive? And that gives us a real understanding of how that cancer is fighting back. And our hopes there is to be able to then, of course, understand those mechanisms and further treat the patient. Those biospecimens and data, I liken it as sometimes you might think of, you know, a room full of Legos. So if you have this big room full of Legos, you just have all this data, but what do you do with it? We take that, all of that clinical data, you know, from our 3,500 subjects, which we followed for over, you know, years and years and years, and we start modeling that. So we take all of that raw information and we create these very large-scale harmonized genomic data sets. And that data then, you know, put back together by our amazing bioinformaticians really creates models that researchers can use to interrogate what's going on in the mechanisms of these tumors. We also generate from those biospecimens preclinical models, which are an amazing resource for researchers. So we have cell lines, and we do have some animal models. And the cell lines, it's that tumor we took from the specimen, we're able to grow in a tube, and it gives us the ability to test a whole bunch of drugs at once. So in a clinical trial, you're usually looking at one drug or two drugs. For the cell lines, you're able to run 1,000 drug profile to say, hey, what does this specific tumor react to? So the CBTTC now has 150 cell lines. It's a very intensive activity, but through those cell lines, we're working with the NCI to do large-scale drug testing, and we hope to have some of those results back soon. And from those, as I said, those large-scale models, that's where then, folks can start doing the research. What's the difference? What's the mechanisms? And from that research, then we can say, okay, wait, this is a mechanism that I saw in, let's say, breast cancer. Wait, this drug might work on this mechanism, even though it's in pediatric brain tumors. Let's test it on our preclinical models. If there's response, then we can move it into a clinical trial. So it's really, this methodology is trying to work right from the data and biospecimens, and along the way, we're sharing at every step. So we're sharing the biospecimens and data, and then we share these harmonized data sets and preclinical models, and then we try to work to collaborate on the research. Hey, I think this guy or this gal's an expert in this individual area. Let's reach out to him, and then, of course, working to drive the therapeutics acceleration as fast as possible. Any questions for this? Nope. Okay, next slide. I think I'm taking a little too long. I'm sorry. I've been with this group since 2013, so I can talk a lot about this. And, you talked about Cavatica and how do we share this? How do we share those large data models? There wasn't anything, there were no platforms, in 2013. As Jen said, 2016, we came out with this. This was like one of the first times that pediatrics came out alongside of the adult initiative, because the NCI had funded the genomic data cloud, and the genomic data cloud was fantastic, but it only had adult data in it. So we pushed Cavatica with brain tumors, and we were able to launch Cavatica, which is doing phenomenal right now, and is part of the NIH Data Commons ecosystem. So we're extremely happy about that. And Cavatica provides over 450 tools. Anyone can bring their own data. They can request and access the raw genomic data there, and they can also bring their own tools. So it's almost a one-stop shop where, researchers can come and get access to more tools and data that they would have anywhere else in their own institution. And of course, Jen talked about the Gabriella Kids First Data Resource Portal. And PEDC Bioportal is our other area, and that one actually is utilized by clinicians and clinician researchers. When you go in there, there's more of the process data. So we've already processed the data, we can put it in there, and that's where they can go in and try to find new targets for specific diseases. They can look at the data that's been processed and say, oh wait, there's a variant here. Why is there a variant here? Oh, that's an interesting variant. Maybe that's a therapeutic variant. So they can really work with the data in PEDC Bioportal. Next. And, I can't be any more grateful to be part of this team, or super excited to just show this last slide. And, the CBTN really has created the world's largest pediatric brain tumor resource that's accessible, as Jen said, to any researcher around the world. We have more than 3,500 patients enrolled and climbing, over 40,000 biospecimens, and we were able to generate that raw genomic data on 1,000 patients. And again, the NIH had not provided funding for data generation on pediatric brain tumors. There was the TCGA initiative that provided extensive funding for adults, and then there was a small pediatric initiative, but it didn't include brain tumors. So CBTN was the first to do large-scale genomic analysis and share that with the research community. Of course, we have those 3 platforms, and as I said, we're working toward our integration with PNOC and other clinical trial consortia. So I'm happy to answer any questions at any time, but I think that's my part.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Jenna. And my name is Jonathan Waller. I'm, again, on the operations team, and I'm going to just sort of cover the last little bit of what we were talking about today. We can go to the next slide. We really wanted to talk a bit, and to sum up just what Jenna said, earlier on, is that we are really needing to come together as a community. We want to drive partnerships across the board with clinicians, with researchers, but also with patient families and with foundations. There's at a single institution, there's only so much impact that a researcher can have. However, across this broad network, of cloud-based platforms of accessible pediatric resources, of all these research projects, we can really do an incredible amount of impact. And so we can go to the next slide. And so how do we do that? As we highlighted in an earlier slide, there's a whole operations team here that's willing and able to empower this brain tumor community to take advantage of these resources and to work with us. Nothing has changed in terms of we are continuing to share data, specimens, and preclinical models with as many researchers as possible. But as Jenna said, we've so far empowered 170 researchers or more to access these raw data and biospecimens, but we want that to be thousands. We want that to be millions, hopefully. And so researchers who are interested in helping, you can contribute your expertise to review research projects to ensure that no piece of hard specimen tissue goes to waste, that we're not redoubling our efforts in data projects. And then as well, we've recently launched, and we're very proud of, 7 clinical trial working groups in partnership with the Pediatric Pacific Neuro-Oncology Consortium. And these are based on specific brain tumor diagnoses. Now we are inviting researchers and patient families who have a passion or expertise in these specific diagnoses to get involved. Researchers can contact us at research@cbttc.org to learn more. And you can move on to the next slide. And what's just as important, or more so for us, is that patients and families become empowered in this research. Patients and families are critical partners in achieving this vision for better therapies and a cure, and there are so many ways that you can get involved today. Donating tissue and other biosamples and contributing health information throughout a patient's cancer journey is the #1 way that patients are really making a huge difference. And we really want to drive home that it's not just patients. To date, over 1,100 parents have contributed DNA samples, primarily through saliva swabs, that give us a better picture, a more complete picture of a patient's genetic profile. And as Jenna said before, we operate in fiscal years. Our fiscal year started July 1. Already 42 families have contributed this extra DNA information. And this is in the face of a pandemic. Families have not lost their sight on the most important crisis that's going on in the world for our children, and that is brain tumors. Again, families are able to participate in clinical trials. We are working to improve precision clinical trials, matching children to the best trial that will allow them to advance their understanding of these diseases and possibly lead to clinical impact. We're also hoping to get patient expertise and insights, again, in these clinical trial working groups. We are currently working on a new website, which will be launched throughout Childhood Cancer Awareness Month in September. And through that, families are going to be able to really drill down into specific research areas that they want to support, specific experts at specific member institutions that are part of our network to support directly that research and those efforts. And then finally, advocacy efforts to increase federal funding and awareness and champion collaborative research for data sharing. Jenna mentioned earlier the RACE Act. That came as in large part to dedication from families across the country who we're persistent to our elected leaders to say, if you're going to fund pharmaceutical research, you need to make sure that it is touching childhood cancer research as well. And so there's a number of ways that you can get involved, and we hope that you'll join us. You can email us at operations@cbttc.org anytime, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can with ways that you can get involved today. So we'll move on to the next slide.
And we do have amazing Facebook and social media outlets that Jonathan runs, so you can get new information all the time on Twitter and Facebook and now Instagram.
And so this is, we've had some excellent questions today, and so we just, again, want to thank you all for joining us. But this session, we've built in a bit of a Q&A session for the end of the presentation. So if any folks want to unmute themselves, you can please pose questions to any of our team, and we're also monitoring the chat bar to see if anyone wants to text questions in.
And please feel free to provide topics for our next one. We will be doing these monthly, and so we hope to make sure that they're very informative and meet your needs.
I have a quick question, maybe a silly one. God forbid we do, meet somebody or know somebody who's got a son or daughter pediatric that's diagnosed. How do we connect them with you to get tissue samples and stuff like that? Is that as simple as saying, hey, check out CBTN, or get their doctor connected with you? What kind of advice would you give us for, as we bump into people 6 degrees of separation that unfortunately are going to have a child diagnosed?
That's a great question. Jen, do you want to take that?
Both of those things.
Yeah, that is a great question, and unfortunately, yes, it's going to happen. And you can reach out to us. We did have our website or our email listed as operations@cbttc.org, and as we rebrand, it will become cbtn.org. But you can just use the cbttc.org for now. But essentially, what will happen is we can consent over the phone with a patient, and then we can work with that institution to have the samples transferred to us. We're already doing it with a number of other collaborations, so it's possible for us to do it. Even if they're not being treated at an institution that's a member of our consortium, we can still obtain the samples if they want to donate them.
Thank you. And I guess a subset of that is the consortium if somebody was looking for a doctor, is that something that you guys could recommend too? Because of course everybody says, I want to go to the best pediatric oncologist or neurosurgeon or something.
You know what? This is Kristen. Pete, I can talk to you about that.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, I can talk to you about that.
Yep, thank you.
Thanks.
Are there other questions from anyone? Was that answered sufficiently? I know Kristen's a great resource too for our questions. We go to her with patient engagement questions. So she's the rock star. That's not already apparent. Maybe any suggested, if there are questions, again, feel free. I know it's kind of hard to think of those in real time sometimes. You feel free to follow up or chat with us. We'd love to hear ideas maybe now, and maybe this could spur some questions about potential topics you'd like to hear about, either in research or how we can do more to connect with potential families or institutions. Does anyone have any?
And I will put in a plug that, Jen, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe our public webinar, our CBTN investigator meeting where CBTN researchers will be presenting, is coming up on October 9th. So that would be another opportunity to really learn about the CBTTC and some exciting research directly from the researchers.
And we'll be posting that information on social media and our website, and of course, Kristen can share that information with you as well.
Well, I guess we're at 6:30. I know hopefully I can speak for the team where I'm just so grateful that you all took the time out of your day to join us and learn a little bit more about CBTN. We are always trying to improve, and we look forward to hearing from you. And please do not hesitate at any time to reach out with questions. Bobby and Jonathan create materials that are potentially could be useful within the community that you could share. So we have flyers and videos and materials like that. So please don't hesitate to reach out if you're having an event or you would like to share information. We do have a media resource that we can provide you. All right. Well, I'm going to say thank you to the team and thank you for everyone that joined us tonight.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Keep up
Thank
the
you
good
for
work.
presenting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Have a good night. Thank you.